In our headlines on this Friday afternoon, October 7th, South Korea's current account is back in the red for the month of August, recording its biggest margin of deficit in over 2 years amid soaring global energy prices. Meanwhile, the International Monetary Fund is lowering yet again its growth projection for the global economy, as officials there believe risk factors will remain for the time being. And former ruling party chairperson Lee Jun-seok has been given an additional one-year suspension for his earlier filing of an injunction against his party's emergency leadership. We begin with some grim news about the country's current account shifting back into the red in August to post its biggest deficit in more than 2 years on the back of skyrocketing energy prices. Our senior finance ministry correspondent Ji-young reports.
Amid soaring import prices, South Korea posted a current account deficit in August for the first time in 4 months. The latest data released by the Bank of Korea on Friday shows that South Korea's current account shortfall in August came to roughly $3 billion. Compared to the same period last year, the current account balance dropped by around $10.5 billion. This came as the goods account balance stayed in the red for 2 straight months.
The goods account balance, which recorded $6 billion of surplus last August, has gone into a deficit of $4.4 billion this year, as continued growth in imports surpassed that of exports.
Goods exports in August stood at around $57 billion, with an almost 8% rise compared to the previous year. However, the bank said due to the slowdown of exports to the country's biggest trading partner, China, and the sluggish demand in the tech sector, the export growth rate plunged from the nearly 33% growth recorded in the same period a year earlier. Also, the jump in imports of goods more than offset the export gains, pushing the goods balance into the red. Goods imports stood at roughly $62 billion, soaring by nearly 31% compared to the same month last year, about 4 times that of the export growth. Of those inbound shipments, commodity imports surged by more than 36% on year. Imports of coal skyrocketed by 132% and natural gas by more than 117%. Ji-young, Arirang News.
And presiding over an emergency economic meeting on this Friday morning, President Yoon Suk-yeol called for continued vigilance from his officials with regard to economic affairs and for the installment of a financial safety valve. To take a listen.
국민과 시장의 불안감을 덜어줄 수 있는 안전판을 정부가 선제적으로 구축해야 됩니다. 외환시장의 수급 환경을 개선할 수 있도록 외환 당국과 국민연금 간의 외환 수합 이런 것들을 비롯해서 이미 발표한 조치에 더해서 안전판을 선제적으로 확대해 나가겠습니다.
President Yoon also pledged prompt injection of funds this month to stabilize financial markets and to ease red tape to encourage greater foreign investment. He also called for efforts to bolster exports. Separately, with regard to Korea's current account deficit for the month of August, authorities have spoken about the possibility of a turnaround by the end of this year. Meanwhile, concerns about the health of the global economy have been reignited following the International Monetary Fund's possible additional downward revision to its growth projection. Our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
Warning of further global recession, the IMF chief said it will slash its growth projection for 2023 for the second time.
So what is happening is we have downgraded 3 times since October last year our growth projections. Last time we brought 22 to 3.2% growth, and for 23 projections was 2.9%.
Speaking during a curtain raiser address of the annual meetings of the IMF and World Bank on Thursday, IMF Managing Director Kristalina Georgieva said that the international body estimates that countries that account for about 1/3 of the world economy will experience at least 2 consecutive quarters of contraction beginning this or next year. She said the IMF expects a global output loss of about $4 trillion over the next several years.
Overall, we expect global output as a result of all this to shrink between now and 2026 by $4 trillion. To give you a sense what is $4 trillion, this is the size of the German economy. Gone.
The IMF chief also highlighted that the world has lived through shock after shock during the past 3 years or so, including the COVID-19 pandemic and Russia's invasion of Ukraine. She added that going forward, she expects that things are likely to get worse before getting better. Kim Hyun-sun, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, on the security front, there were some unusual and rather unsettling events involving North Korean warplanes near the South Korean border earlier on Thursday. Our Unification Ministry correspondent Han Sung-hoo reports.
12 North Korean military aircraft were detected flying in formation near South Korea's so-called special surveillance line, at one point even flying south of it, in what appears to be Pyongyang's latest show of force. According to a South Korean military official, the unusual occurrence took place at around 2 p.m. on Thursday, and authorities speculate the planes in question had also engaged in air-to-surface shooting practice. It's believed the 8 fighters and 4 bombers flew for approximately an hour from Goksan towards Hwangju, both in the North's Hwanghae-do province. In response, South Korea instantly dispatched 30 of its own combat aircraft, including F-15Ks, a reaction the official described as of overwhelming might. The North's aircraft, however, reportedly did not cross over the Tactical Action Line, a virtual line that South Korea established about 20 to 50 kilometers north of its airspace to keep an eye out for possible emergencies. Observers view the move as another form of retaliation by the regime against South Korea, the United States, and Japan's recent trilateral military exercises, including their missile defense drills the same day, their anti-submarine drills last week, and South Korea and the United States' bilateral warplane exercise on Tuesday. The same day, Pyongyang launched an intermediate-range ballistic missile over Japan in a major provocation. Han Sung-woo, Arirang News.
And in response to the heightened tensions here in this part of the world, South Korea and the United States have begun a combined naval exercise in the East Sea. According to South Korea's Joint Chiefs of Staff, the drills will take place until Saturday. They seek to strengthen the allies' combined defense posture against North Korean provocations. Warships taking part include Seoul's Munmu, the Great Destroyer, and Washington's nuclear-powered USS Ronald Reagan aircraft carrier, which will later be escorted down to waters southeast of Jeju Island as part of the exercise. On the international front, the UN Human Rights Council has voted against addressing allegations of atrocities by the Chinese government in its Xinjiang region. Our Lee Seung-jae has the latest.
Just last month, the United States and its allies presented a first draft decision calling for the UN Human Rights Council to hold a debate on alleged widespread abuses in China's Xinjiang region. The move came as former UN Rights Chief Michelle Bachelet released a report on the region, citing possible human rights crimes against Uyghurs and other Muslim minorities there. The group of countries led by the U.S. pushed for just a bare minimum of discussion on the matter, believing that by going no further than simply seeking to talk about the findings, other member countries would not block putting it on the agenda. However, on Thursday, countries on the 47-member council in Geneva voted 19-17 against holding a debate on human rights in Xinjiang, with 11 nations abstaining. While South Korea was one of the 17 member countries that voted in favor of holding a debate, countries like Cuba, the United Arab Emirates, Uzbekistan, Indonesia, and Venezuela were among the 19 countries who voted against it. Among the countries that abstained from voting was Ukraine. China says the push to discuss the issue was taking advantage of the United Nations to interfere in China's internal affairs, adding that if China is being targeted, it's only a matter of time before other developing countries are targeted as well. Bachelet's report, which was released minutes before her term ended on August 31st, highlighted credible allegations of widespread torture, arbitrary detention, and violations of religious and reproductive rights. It brought forth long-running allegations that Beijing detained more than 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslims and had forcefully sterilized women. China continues to reject the allegations, insisting that it's instead running vocational training centers in the region to counter extremism. Lee Seung-jae, Arirang News.
On the local political front, that would be a long-standing confrontation between the emergency leadership of the People Power Party and its former chairperson Lee Jun-seok appears to be ending with a fresh court ruling in favor of the ruling party and an additional suspension term for Lee by his party. Our National Assembly correspondent Lee Kyung-eun has details.
In another legal dispute between the People Power Party and its ex-chairman Lee Jun-seok, the court this time has ruled in favor of the ruling party. On Thursday, it rejected the injunction he filed against the party's launching of an emergency leadership, shifting from its previous stance. For Lee's first injunction a month ago, it had ruled in favor of Lee and suspended the party's then interim leader, citing an issue with the party's definition of emergency required to launch an emergency leadership. But this time, the court recognized the legitimacy of the second leadership that was launched after the party revised the definition of emergency in its charter. Lee is now essentially blocked from returning to his post even after his 6-month suspension ends. Taking to social media, he said he will continue the lonely fight. Perhaps making the fight even more difficult, the People Power Party's Ethics Committee decided to give Lee an additional 1-year suspension on top of his suspension over sexual bribery allegations.
The main reason behind the punishment is Lee Jun-seok's filing of an injunction against the emergency leadership that was launched upon the revision of the charter to clear any legal flaws.
Now, Lee's suspension will last until January 8, 2024. That means Lee will not be able to run for the next chairmanship at the National Convention set for early next year. Running for a parliamentary seat for the PPP is also virtually impossible, with his suspension ending just 3 months before the general elections. In sharp contrast, the party is relieved that a Muslim crisis finally comes to an end, allowing it to do what is its main job.
The party will put its utmost efforts into firmly supporting the success of the Yoon Suk-yeol administration as one.
In the meantime, the party will prepare for a national convention where it elect a new full-time leadership tasked with managing general elections. The ruling party will seek to take back the majority in parliament from the Democratic Party so that it can effectively push through the government's policies for the rest of President Yoon's term. Lee Kyung-eun, Arirang News.
In other news, Korea's tech giant Samsung is projecting an almost 32% plunge in profits for the third quarter of this year amid poor demand for electronic devices and memory chips. Our Shin Ha-young has more on these projections.
The ongoing global economic slowdown has been negatively affecting the performance of South Korean tech giant Samsung Electronics. The company on Friday reported estimated third quarter sales of 76 trillion Korean won, or roughly $54 billion at the current rate, up about 2.7% from the same period last year. However, in terms of Q3 operating profit, it has projected an on-year decrease of almost 32%, amounting to 10.8 trillion won, or over $7.6 billion. This marks the company's first on-year decrease in almost 3 years. Despite the reasonable sales figures, analysts are linking the estimated drop in operating profits to weakened demand for semiconductors due to the global economic slowdown. They expect company profits in their semiconductor sector to hit around $4 billion, decreasing about 30% compared to the second quarter of 2022. Demand for PCs and mobile devices are falling rapidly amid high inflation and rising interest rates. And despite the declining price of chips, demand for use in devices has continued to drop. Meanwhile, some industry insiders say the company has yet to see its weakest performance and forecast a gloomy outlook. They pointed out that recovery in the chip industry would be a key factor. However, amid the ongoing Ukraine war and high inflation, weakened demand for IT devices will likely continue until the first half of next year. 신하영, Arirang News.
Some say one silver lining amid the pandemic has been the renewed interest in the importance of work-life balance. That being said, a growing number of entities here are choosing to put into practice a 4-day workweek arrangement in hopes of promoting that balance and boosting productivity. My colleague Yoon was out and about.
Song Seung-yeon started working at this education company in Seoul about 2 years ago. And what's so special about it is that her Friday here is done away with entirely. That extra day off has changed many aspects of her life.
I get to go on a food tour with my family or go somewhere with my mom on a weekday. I have also been using the extra day off to learn what I've always wanted to learn, which is pole dancing.
The 4-day work week was something that was considered radical just a few years ago. But many people have been re-evaluating their work-life balance in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic. As for HUNET, it's seen more good with employees working less.
We did have some concerns in the beginning, but the system settled quickly following the launch this year. We saw 14 times more job applications than last year, and we're expecting our sales growth rate to rise by more than 20% this year. We're also witnessing most of our employees making the best use of their time at work under a shorter work week.
Becoming the first university hospital in the country to do so, Severance Hospital is going to run a 4-day workweek pilot project in 3 of its wards starting late this year. The hospital's trade union chair Kwon Mi-kyung says this is just the beginning and there are more changes to come.
Despite the fact that their salaries could be cut slightly, many have reacted positively to the pilot project. Here in Korea, it's very hard for nurses at university hospitals to work until retirement, mostly due to long working hours. So we hope to make some changes in that part, and in the long run, the government would implement the 4-day work week for other hospitals and their workers as well.
But the 4-day work week isn't all butterflies and rainbows. There are still concerns over added costs, reduced competitiveness, and overwork. So employers are advised to try to change on a step-by-step basis, while employees should understand that the time spent at work could become even more stressful due to that extra day off.
With countries like Iceland and Britain launching nationwide pilot programs on 4-day work weeks, eyes are on whether more South Korean companies will make the 4-day work week the future for full-time employees here in the country. Yoon, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, in Busan, festivities continue with the film gala there proving to be a bridge between moviegoers and makers from diverse regional backgrounds. Our culture correspondent Kim Hyun-sung explains.
Busan International Film Festival curates its film selections in a way that amplifies and showcases the diverse voices in Asian cinema. And this year is no exception. Here are some films that will serve up a unique look into Asia.
So Zwigato was born out of, just looking at what was happening during the pandemic. There was a lot of anxiety around unemployment. So the disparities of class, we also have caste, and of gender, of religion, all these things, how they intersect in sort of the new urban India.
According to the director, the setting is local to India, but the overriding message is relatable worldwide. This is the director's 3rd film featured in Busan, and she finds the festival to be a bridge that connects her work to the world and to a younger audience.
I have had many films that have been shown here. So I've really seen the festival grow, and I love the fact that there are so many young people who watch world cinema from everywhere, and that language is not a barrier. And
Thai treasure Mario Maurer also set foot on Busan's red carpet. The film that he stars in, 6 characters, was selected to compete in the category Chiseok. Chiseok is a new section created this year to commemorate the late Kim Ji-seok, who was the founding member of the Busan International Film Festival in 1996, and to celebrate Asian filmmakers. The film shows the beautiful scenery of Thailand and the country's different eras.
Thai film is very unique, and also I think not only Thai film, all Asian film is very unique because in every part in Asia we have our own culture, and we have our own style, right? Especially Thailand, we have many more stories to tell.
This year's BIFF also celebrates Tony Leung, internationally acclaimed actor and one of the most respected figures in Asian cinematic history. And BIFF, in his honor, will screen 6 of his films.
For the 6 films I've chosen, I wanted to show as many different genres as possible and the works of the directors I really like.
With films from more than 70 countries and a total of more than 350 movies by domestic and overseas directors set to be screened over the 10-day festival, visitors are going to have a wide selection to choose from. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News, Busan.
Let's take a look at what's going on in the world now. In Thailand, dozens have been killed in a deadly gun and knife attack. At least 36 people were killed on Thursday afternoon local time. At least 22 children and a pregnant woman are among the fatalities reported so far, and the death toll could rise. According to local authorities, another 10 people were wounded, with 6 of them serious. Using a firearm and a knife, the attacker targeted a daycare center in Thailand's northeastern town of Uthai Sawan. He then returned home, reportedly killing his wife, his 2-year-old stepson, and then himself. Authorities have identified the suspect as a former policeman who was fired on drug-related charges in June. At least 22 people have died and dozens are missing after 2 boats carrying migrants sank in the Mediterranean Sea. Both boats sank in stormy weather on Wednesday local time, with rescue efforts continuing into the next day. Greek authorities say 16 people died from one of the boats near Lesbos Island, where Greek rescuers were able to save 10 people, but 12 remain missing. The second boat sank near Kythera Island with 4 people killed and 10 missing, while 80 were rescued. The boats reportedly began their journey from neighboring Turkey, a common launching point for migrants trying to enter Europe. US President Joe Biden has issued an executive order pardoning those convicted under federal law for simple possession of marijuana. The move announced on Thursday will wipe the conviction off criminal records of thousands of people, making it easier for them to secure housing or employment. The pardon covers possession for personal use and does not include those charged with growing or possessing the drug with intent to supply. Biden has also called on state governors to issue their own marijuana pardons, as most simple possession convictions are at state level. In a statement released by the White House, Biden said that, quote, "No one should be in jail just for using or possessing marijuana." And in our final story, Greenpeace members have floated a mock pipeline along Prague's Vltava River to protest the EU's reliance on fossil fuels. Written on the pipeline are the words, "Putin's bloody gas." It was floated along the river on Thursday near Prague Castle, where EU leaders are holding a 2-day summit. Meanwhile, in London on Thursday, over 30 climate activists from the group Just Stop Oil glued themselves to roads near Trafalgar Square. The group is calling for the UK to not issue any new oil or gas licenses in the North Sea. Matthew Ashley, Arirang News.
Good Friday afternoon. You will need to wear something warmer today, as the low in the capital marked the lowest of this autumn season due to a cold air mass from the northwest. And it's going to be chilly in the afternoon too, with the high hovering around 19 degrees, much lower than the average. And overall, skies are bright in Seoul with pleasant autumn sunshine, but it's not getting warmer at all, with highs in central regions only reaching the upper teens and the low 20s in Daegu and Busan. And with the effect of an easterly wind, it's still raining on the east coast. And there's a heavy rain advisory in Ulsan, Gyeongsang-Buk-do province. There will be up to 50 millimeters more rain in coastal areas of Gangwon-do province, combined with strong winds and high waves, as well as slight drizzle in a few inland regions. Please be mindful of rough offshore conditions if you're taking your boat out. And tomorrow you can enjoy sunny spells with cooler temperatures. And there's rain forecast for Sunday, and that is Hangul Day, which will expand nationwide. Have a great 3-day weekend. And now let's take a look at the worldwide weather conditions. Right, that brings us to the end of this edition of the Daily Report, but do stay behind for our daily panel talk show coming up next. Thank you for now.